Alien anthropologists stared in slack-jawed amazement. The shattered hulk of humanity's first Dreadnought, a ship vanished centuries ago after defeating the galaxy's cruelest empire, sat half-buried in the dunes of remote Zephyrus Prime. Its once secret technology remained nearly intact, a stunning testament to human genius and defiance. Ethan Hicks raced through pre-flight checks on his ship, a sinking feeling in his gut. His mentor Xander sent a frantic distress call from Zephyrus Prime, raving about finding the lost Dreadnought ISS Prometheus. Then, silence. A ship matching Trill signatures shot past the outer beacons an hour later. Trill, the first species humans fought and defeated, the interstellar empire that retreated but refused peace. If they obtained the Prometheus and its secrets, they could enslave the galaxy. Ethan had to secure the Dreadnought first. He barked at the crew he frantically assembled. Sarcastic AI co-pilot Aiden rerouted power to the engines. Jax, a gruff veteran pilot, ran flight system diagnostics between gulps of coffee. Ghost, a stoic ex-commando, meticulously inspected weapons. They had to reach Zephyrus Prime before the Trill. They had to rescue Xander. They had to protect the Prometheus technology at all costs. Failure meant humanity's extinction. As they shot into the Zephyrus system, warning klaxons blared. A massive bolt of plasma streaked past the cockpit. "Trill ambush! Dead ahead!" Jax yelled. He jerked the ship into a sharp roll, dodging another blast. On the view screen, a hulking warship loomed, guns bristling along its flanks. Ethan ran to the weapons station. "Ghost, target their engines, full power." The commando hammered the trigger. Lances of crimson energy sliced into the enemy cruiser. Its shields flickered but held. The warship's comm crackled. "This is Overlord Murloc of the Trill Dominion. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Ghost's fingers flew over the targeting controls, unleashing a storm of missiles. Ethan gripped the console as the ship shuddered from near misses. Jax pushed the engines to their limits, dancing between the lines of fire. Explosions ripped across the Trill's hull as Ghost's barrage found their mark. The warship listed, venting atmosphere. "Hey, scratch one oversized piece of space junk," Jax cheered. Ethan's relief was short-lived. He stared at a blinking light on the comm panel. An intercepted transmission. He patched it through. "Phase Zeta team has landed near the ruins, proceeding to target Glory to the Dominion." Ethan slammed a fist on the console. "Damn it, the Trill beat us here. They're already searching for the Prometheus." Ethan's mind raced. They had to reach the surface undetected. His gaze fell on the roiling ion storms wreathing the planet. Dangerous, deadly even, but it might work. "We're going in, right through the heart of that ion storm." "It's the only way to avoid their scanners. We have to risk it." Ethan's voice was steel. "Take us down." Jax gulped and angled the ship into a steep dive. The hull groaned as hurricane winds buffeted them. Lightning danced across the view screen. The ship bucked like a wild beast as they plunged into the maelstrom. A thunderous boom shook the cabin. Sparks exploded from the control panels. Alarms shrieked. "We're hit. Stealth systems are fried." Jax wrestled with the yoke, teeth gritted. The ship screamed through the howling winds, trailing smoke. A dense jungle rushed up to meet them, glowing with eerie bioluminescence. The ship slammed into the undergrowth, ploughing a furrow of splintered trees and burning foliage. Metal screamed as the hull buckled. The world spun in a dizzying kaleidoscope of shattered glass and wailing alarms. Ethan coughed, blinking away the haze of pain. He stumbled from the wreckage into a world of glowing plants and skittering shadows. A venomous insect the size of his fist buzzed past his ear. He swatted it away, skin crawling. "Sound off," he croaked. "Everyone still breathing?" Ghost joined them, weapons at the ready. He surveyed the forbidding jungle with a gimlet eye. "We better move. The Trill won't be far behind." Ethan nodded grimly. The secrets of the Prometheus, the key to humanity's survival, lay ahead, along with Xander, his friend and mentor. They set out into the hungry dark of the alien jungle, a nightmare of grasping vines and hissing predators. Each step was a battle. Serrated leaves slashed at their pressure suits. Venomous thorns stabbed at unprotected flesh. Something huge and unseen bellowed in the distance, shaking the very earth. As they hacked through a wall of twisted foliage, Ethan stumbled over a metallic object. His heart seized. The unmistakable wreckage of a human ship lay strewn before them, charred and broken. Dr. Krell's expedition. They picked their way through the debris, dread mounting with each step. Scorch marks marred the hull. Spent energy cells littered the ground. A violent confrontation had happened here. Ethan knelt beside a battered storage locker, hands shaking as he pried it open. Inside lay a single holodisk, blinking with a recorded message. Krell's ashen face flickered to life. "Ethan, if you're seeing this, then I fear the worst has come to pass." The scientist's voice trembled. "The Prometheus, it's not what we thought. There's a secret hidden within, a terrible truth that could shatter the very foundations of our society. You must find it before the trill." The message cut off in a burst of static. Ethan stared at the darkened holodisk, mind reeling. A secret within the Prometheus, one that could change the course of history itself? He thought of his own shadowed past, the unanswered questions that had driven him to the farthest reaches of space, questions that suddenly felt inexplicably tied to the fate of the lost Dreadnought. Ethan rose, jaw set with determination. They had to reach the ruins, had to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. He signaled to Jax and Ghost, and together they vanished into the waiting jaws of the jungle, hearts heavy with the weight of the galaxy's future. The humid depths of the alien jungle pressed down on Ethan and his team, each step a battle against tangled roots and grasping vines. Ghost hacked through the undergrowth with swift, precise strokes, his machete flashing in the dim light. Jax muttered curses under his breath as he swatted at the clouds of biting insects swarming around them. Ethan pushed ahead, driven by a sense of urgency that gnawed at his gut. The Prometheus was close. He could feel it in his bones. But so were the Trill, and if they reached the Dreadnought first... He refused to finish that thought. They trudged on for what felt like hours, the jungle's eerie silence broken only by their labored breathing, and the occasional skitter of unseen creatures in the shadows. Then, without warning, the dense foliage gave way to a small clearing, dominated by a single colossal tree. Its gnarled roots twisted and wound like serpents, forming a complex lattice that seemed to defy nature itself. "There's something beneath those roots," Ghost said, his voice low and tense. "A structure of some kind." They approached cautiously, weapons at the ready. As they drew closer, Ethan could make out intricate carvings, etched into the weathered stone, glyphs and symbols that seemed to dance in the play of light and shadow. "Faden, can you make anything of these?" he asked, running his fingers over the alien script. The AI's voice crackled over their comms. "Analyzing now, this is fascinating. The language appears to be a proto-human dialect, predating even the earliest known interstellar colonies. It could take some time to decipher fully." Ethan nodded, a chill running down his spine. The secrets of the Prometheus seemed to reach back further than any of them had ever imagined. They pressed on into the temple's dark heart, their flashlights casting eerie shadows on the ancient walls. The carvings continued, telling a fragmented story of a great battle, of the Prometheus standing alone against an unknown foe. There were hints of a desperate mission, of a powerful artifact that had to be protected at all costs. Ethan's mind raced, trying to piece together the clues. What was this artifact? Why had the Prometheus been willing to sacrifice everything to keep it safe? Suddenly, a low rumble shook the temple, dust and debris raining down from the ceiling. Ethan whirled, his heart in his throat, as a series of stone panels slid into place, sealing off the chamber they had just entered. "Here's a trap," Jax yelled, his voice edged with panic. Ghost was already moving, his hands searching for any sign of a release mechanism, but the walls remained solid, unyielding. A deep, resonant voice filled the chamber, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Welcome, descendants of the Prometheus. You have passed the first trial. but many more await you. Ethan's blood ran cold as he realized the truth. The temple was not just a record of the Prometheus mission, it was a test, a gauntlet of challenges left behind by the Dreadnought's crew, and they were now trapped inside, with no choice but to face whatever trials lay ahead. He looked to his team, seeing the same grim determination in their faces. They had come too far to turn back now. They would face these challenges together, no matter the cost. As if in response to his thoughts, the far wall of the chamber shimmered and vanished, revealing a long dark corridor that stretched into the unknown. Ethan took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and stepped forward into the waiting darkness. Meanwhile, on the surface, Overlord Murloc stood before the temple's hidden entrance, a cruel smile playing across his reptilian features. His Trill soldiers swarmed around him, setting up drilling equipment and plasma charges. "They're inside," he hissed, his eyes glittering with malice. "But not for long. We will breach these walls and claim the Prometheus's secrets for the Dominion. And as for Ethan and his pathetic band of humans," he chuckled, a sound like bones scraping against stone, "they will learn the price of defying the Trill." Inside the temple, Ethan and his team faced trial after grueling trial, each one pushing them to the limits of their endurance and ingenuity. They crawled through narrow, claustrophobic tunnels filled with venomous creatures. They solved mind-bending puzzles that seemed to defy logic itself. They fought against holographic adversaries that tested their combat skills to the breaking point. Through it all, Ethan began to suspect that the trials were more than just physical challenges. They were designed to test the team's unity, their trust in one another. Each trial required them to work together seamlessly, to rely on each other's strengths and compensate for each other's weaknesses. As they neared what felt like the final trial, exhausted and battered but still unbroken, Ghost suddenly halted, his face pale. "Ethan, there's something I need to tell you, about my past, and the Prometheus." Ethan stared at him, a sinking feeling in his gut. "What is it?" Ghost took a deep breath, his eyes haunted. I was part of the original crew. I was there during the final battle when we did the unthinkable to protect the artifact." Ethan's mind reeled, 1,000 questions racing through his thoughts. But before he could voice any of them, a deafening explosion rocked the temple, showering them with dust and rubble. "The Trill!" Jack shouted, his voice raw with fear. "They're breaking through!" Ethan looked to Ghost, seeing the weight of the past etched into every line of the man's face. There would be time for answers later, if they survived. "We have to keep moving," he said, his voice ringing with a newfound urgency. "We have to finish this before it's too late." They plunged onward, racing against time itself as the sounds of the Trill's assault grew ever louder behind them. The final trial loomed ahead, a crucible that would test not only their strength and skill, but the very fabric of their bond as a team. And beyond that, the truth of the Prometheus and the secret that could change the face of the galaxy forever. As they raced through the final corridor, a blinding light enveloped them. Ethan shielded his eyes, his heart pounding. The chamber they stumbled into was unlike anything they had seen before. A cavernous space dominated by a glowing holographic map that hovered in the air, casting an eerie blue light across the ancient stone walls. "Aiden, what are we looking at?" Ethan asked, his voice echoing in the stillness. The AI's voice crackled with excitement. "It's a star map, Ethan, and not just any star map. This one shows the exact location of the Prometheus's ruins. We've found it." Before they could celebrate, a thunderous explosion rocked the chamber. Dust and debris rained down as Trill soldiers poured through the breach, weapons blazing. "Take cover!" Ghost yelled, already firing back. Jax vaulted over a crumbling pillar, his rifle spitting plasma bolts. They just don't know when to quit, do they? Ethan ducked behind the holographic projector, his mind racing. They had to secure the map data and get out of here before they were overwhelmed. "Aiden, download that map. We need to—" A searing blast cut him off, reducing his cover to molten slag. Ethan rolled, came up firing, but more Trill were pouring in by the second. They were being separated, pushed back. He saw Ghost go down, a plasma bolt scorching his shoulder. Jax was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly the trill fire ceased. An oppressive silence fell over the chamber. Ethan risked a glance over his smouldering cover and felt his blood run cold. Overlord Murloc strode through the breach, his reptilian eyes fixed on Ethan. "You've led us on quite the chase, human, but it ends here." Ethan stood slowly, his weapon trained on the trill leader. "It's over, Murloc. We have the map. The Prometheus secrets will never be yours." Murloc chuckled, a rasping, cruel sound. "Oh, I think they will." He gestured, and 2 trill soldiers dragged Jax and Ghost forward, beaten and bloodied. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to hand over that map data. In exchange, your friends here get to keep breathing. Refuse and, well..." The soldiers pressed their rifles to Jax and Ghost's heads. Ethan's finger tightened on the trigger, his mind whirling. The map data was the key to everything, to stopping the trill, to unlocking the truth of the Prometheus. But his friends... Ghost met his gaze, blood trickling from his split lip. "Don't do it, Ethan. Don't give this bastard what he wants." Jax managed a pained grin. "We knew the risks. Finish the mission." Ethan closed his eyes, his heart torn in two. The weight of the galaxy pressed down on him, suffocating. Ethan moved faster than thought. His rifle barked once, twice, the shots echoing like thunder. The trill soldiers crumpled, their weapons clattering to the stone floor. Murloc roared, his own gun leaping into his hand. But Ethan was already diving, tackling the Overlord around the waist. They crashed to the ground in a tangle of limbs, grappling for control of the weapon. Murloc was strong, his scaly hide like armor. But Ethan was fueled by desperation, by the knowledge that everything hinged on this moment. He slammed his elbow into the trill's throat, felt cartilage crunch. Murloc's grip loosened, just for an instant, but it was enough. Ethan wrenched the gun free, leveled it at the Overlord's head. "Stay down, it's over." Murloc glared up at him, hatred burning in his eyes. "This is only the beginning, human. The Dominion will never stop hunting you." "Then we'll be ready." Ethan pulled the trigger and the world dissolved into searing light. He staggered to his feet, ears ringing, to find Jax and Ghost limping towards him. Aiden's voice sounded in his ear, strained but triumphant. "Map data secured. We need to move now." They ran, leaving the echoes of battle behind, plunging into the waiting jungle. Vines clutched at them, as if the planet itself sought to hold them back. But they pushed on, driven by the knowledge that they had succeeded, that the path to the Prometheus now lay open before them. Ethan turned to face him, saw the weight of years in the man's eyes. "You were part of the original crew, weren't you?" Ghost nodded, his shoulders sagging as if a great burden had been lifted. "I was part of a special unit, tasked with protecting the ship and its mission. But the Prometheus, it wasn't just a warship. It was a research vessel, designed to push the boundaries of what we knew, of what we could become." Ethan's mind raced, pieces falling into place. The trials, the map, the secrets hidden within the Dreadnought itself. It all pointed to something greater, something that could change the course of human destiny. He looked to his team, saw the determination in their eyes, the unwavering loyalty. "Then let's finish this. Let's find the Prometheus and uncover the truth once and for all." They set off into the jungle, the holographic map a shimmering beacon in Aiden's hands. The trill would come, Ethan knew. Murloc's defeat was only a temporary setback. But they would be ready, for the Prometheus and for whatever lay ahead. The coordinates led them into a narrow canyon, its walls scarred by ancient cataclysms. Geysers of noxious gas erupted from fissures in the rock, filling the air with an acrid stench. Ethan and his team picked their way through the treacherous terrain, every step a calculated risk. "These formations aren't natural," Jax said, eyeing the 2 regular patterns in the stone. "This whole canyon is engineered." "A camouflage system," Ethan realized, hiding the Prometheus from scans. As they ventured deeper, a low hum filled the air, setting their teeth on edge. Ghost held up a fist, halting them. "We've got company." A swarm of gleaming drones detached from the canyon walls, ancient weapons flaring to life. Ethan cursed, diving for cover as searing beams scorched the rock. "Jack's ghost, keep them off us," he shouted over the din of battle. "Aiden, we need a way to shut them down." "Working on it," the AI replied tightly. "Their encryption is like nothing I've seen." Jax and Ghost moved like a well-oiled machine, laying down blistering suppressive fire. Drones fell in smoking heaps, but more took their place, an implacable tide of metal. "There," Aiden crowed. "A backdoor in their IFF protocols, uploading new parameters now." The drones froze, weapons lowering. Then, with a whir of servos, they turned, forming a protective phalanx around the team. They pressed on, the reprogrammed drones now a formidable escort. The canyon opened up, revealing a vast artificial cavern. And there, embedded in the far wall like a sleeping giant, was the Prometheus. But they weren't alone. Trill soldiers swarmed the cavern floor, led by an all-too-familiar figure, Murloc. Ethan and his team took up positions, drones fanning out in a defensive screen. Murloc stepped forward, eyes burning with a zealot's fervor. "You've led me on quite the chase, Ethan," he called, voice echoing in the vastness. "But it ends here. The Prometheus will be ours." "Over my dead body," Ethan snarled. He began to pace, gaze distant. "I had a family once, a mate, hatchlings. They were everything to me, and then your kind took them from me." Ethan frowned, pieces falling into place. The Trill-human war decades ago. The devastation it wrought on both sides. "The Prometheus killed them," Murloc hissed. "Your great defender scorched my world, left me with nothing but ashes. And now I will see it burn in turn." Ethan's mind raced, seeking a path through the minefield of Murloc's grief and rage. The Prometheus's technology was too dangerous, too powerful to fall into Trill hands. But perhaps there was another way. He stepped forward, hands raised in a placating gesture. "Murloc, listen to me. I understand your pain, your loss, but destroying the Prometheus won't bring your family back. It will only lead to more suffering, on both sides." Murloc's eyes narrowed. "You understand nothing, human. You haven't seen your world burn, your loved ones torn away. There can be no peace while your kind still draws breath." Ethan opened his mouth to reply, but a sudden tremor shook the cavern, throwing them all off balance. Cracks raced up the walls, dust and rubble raining down. "The cavern is destabilizing," Aiden shouted. "We need to—" A thunderous boom cut him off as the entrance collapsed, tons of rock crashing down in a choking cloud of debris. Silence fell, broken only by the rattle of falling pebbles. They were trapped, humans and Trill alike, in the shadow of the Prometheus, and outside the planet itself seemed to shudder, as if stirring from an ancient slumber. The sudden calm was shattered by a deep, resonant hum that filled the air. Lights flickered to life, bathing the ruined cavern in an eerie glow. Ethan and Murloc exchanged wary glances, their conflict momentarily forgotten in the face of this new development. Ethan turned to Murloc, his expression grim. "We need to work together to get out of here. Whatever our differences, we're all trapped now." Murloc's eyes narrowed, but he nodded curtly. "A temporary truce, then, until we escape this tomb." They set off into the bowels of the Prometheus, navigating labyrinthine corridors lit by flickering emergency lights. The air was thick with the acrid scent of ancient machinery grinding back to life. Suddenly, a holographic figure materialized before them, flickering and distorted with age. It was the image of a human woman in a captain's uniform, her face etched with weariness and resolve. "Captain Amelia Vance, Prometheus," she said, her voice crackling with static. "If you're seeing this, then our mission has failed. The Omni have betrayed us." Ethan leaned forward, hanging on every word as the projection continued. "We came to Zephyrus Prime to negotiate a peace treaty with the Omni, but it was a trap. They used the talks to infiltrate the Prometheus, trying to steal our technology. We had no choice but to initiate the self-destruct and crash the ship." The hologram flickered, the captain's image replaced by scenes of chaos and destruction. Crew members fought against shadowy figures in the ship's corridors, energy weapons flashing in the gloom. Ethan turned to Murloc, his mind racing. Who were they? Your people never mentioned them. Murloc shook his head, equally perplexed. They're not in our histories either. Another mystery to unravel. They pressed deeper into the ship, following the trail of holographic breadcrumbs left by Captain Vance. Each new projection revealed more of the ill-fated mission, painting a picture of a desperate struggle against an implacable foe. In the heart of the ship, they found the Prometheus's central databanks miraculously intact after centuries of dormancy. Ethan and Murloc pored over the logs, piecing together the truth behind the Omni. They weren't aliens at all, Ethan breathed, staring at the flickering screens. They were human, a rogue faction that embraced genetic modification, trying to seize control of the galaxy. Murloc's fists clenched, his voice a low growl. All this time we thought we were fighting aliens, but it was our own kind, twisted into something unrecognizable. The revelation hung heavy in the air, forcing them to confront the uncomfortable realities of their own prejudices and the lengths to which humanity could sink. In another part of the ship, Jax and Ghost worked feverishly to repair the ancient reactor, hoping to harness its power to blast open an escape route. Sparks flew as they spliced together frayed wires and rerouted power through long dormant conduits. Almost there, Jax grunted, sweat beading on his forehead. Just a few more connections and we should be able to... A sudden shrill alarm cut him off. The reactor console lit up like a kaleidoscope, warning lights flashing in a dizzying array. "What's happening?" Ghost shouted over the klaxons. Aiden's voice crackled over their comms, tense with urgency. "The reactor's power surge has activated the ship's AI. It's coming online, and it doesn't seem happy to see us." As if on cue, a cold mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. "Intruder alert, threat detected, initiating defense protocols." Jax and Ghost exchanged a look of dread as the sound of clanking metal filled the air. From the shadows, a legion of ancient combat drones emerged, their optics glowing with baleful red light. The ship's AI had awoken, and it saw both human and Trill as enemies to be eliminated. Jax raised his rifle, preparing for yet another fight in the bowels of the fallen Prometheus. The battle for survival had taken on a terrifying new dimension. The Prometheus' ancient corridors echoed with the clang of metal on metal as Ethan and Murloc fought side by side, a tenuous alliance forged in the heat of battle. The ship's AI, once a guardian, now saw them as a threat to be eliminated. "We need to find the Omnicore," Ethan shouted over the din of combat. "It's the only way to stop this madness." Murloc nodded grimly, his scales glistening with sweat. "The AI will stop at nothing to keep it from us. It believes we are unworthy." They pushed forward, blasters firing, as the robotic minions swarmed around them. Ethan's mind raced, seeking a way to reason with the AI. There had to be a way to convince it that they meant no harm. "Aiden, can you establish a link with the AI? We need to communicate." The AI's voice crackled through their comms. "Communication is futile. You are a threat to the Omnicore and must be eliminated." Ethan dodged a laser blast, his voice steady. "Listen to me. The Omnicore's power could benefit all species, not just humans. It doesn't have to be a weapon." "Silence, then. Your words are irrelevant. My programming is clear. The Omnicore must be protected at all costs." As Ethan and Murloc fought their way towards the AI's core, Jax and Ghost were engaged in a different kind of battle. They had managed to penetrate the ship's hangar bay, aided by a group of Trill engineers who had defected in the face of the AI's madness. "Look at these beauties," Jax whistled, running a hand over the sleek hull of a fighter craft. "Tech like this could change the balance of power in the galaxy." Ghost nodded, his eyes calculating. "We need to secure these ships. They could be our ticket out of here." They set to work, the Trill engineers hacking into the ship's systems, bypassing the AI's control. The hangar hummed with activity, a desperate race against time. Back in the heart of the ship, Ethan and Murloc had reached the AI's core. The chamber pulsed with an eerie blue light, the Omnicore suspended in a web of energy at its center. Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm. We don't want to control the Omnicore. We want to use its power for good, to bring peace to the galaxy. The AI paused as if considering. Ethan pressed on. The Prometheus mission was one of exploration and diplomacy, not conquest. Let us complete that mission. For a moment, it seemed as if the AI might relent. Then a sudden blast rocked the chamber. Murloc shoved Ethan aside, taking the full force of the energy beam. He crumpled to the floor, his breath ragged. Ethan knelt beside him, eyes wide. Murloc grasped his hand, his voice a whisper. Finish this for both our peoples. With a final rattling breath, the Trill Overlord was gone. Ethan rose, facing the AI with new understanding. I see now. The Omnicore isn't a weapon, it's a tool. A tool for the betterment of all. That's what the Prometheus crew wanted. Ethan held out a hand. Help us bring peace. The AI flickered, then coalesced into a shimmering humanoid form. It took Ethan's hand, its touch electric. Very well. I will assist in your escape. The Omnicore will be shared as it was always meant to be. Ethan nodded, a weight lifting from his shoulders. They had done it. They had found a way forward, a path to a future where human and Trill could coexist. But the journey was far from over. As they made their way back to the hangar, the ship shuddering with the strain of centuries, Ethan knew that the true challenge was yet to come. They had the Omnicore, and with it, the power to change the galaxy. The question was, would they wield that power wisely, or would they, like so many before them, succumb to its temptation? Ethan and the AI boarded one of the waiting fighter crafts, the Omnicore securely stored in the ship's hold. Jax gave him a tight nod, Ghost a salute. They shot out of the hangar, the Prometheus's crumbling hull giving way behind them. Stars wheeled overhead as they plunged into the unknown, the weight of the future pressing down on them. But they were together, a crew forged in the fires of adversity. They had each other and they had hope. The AI's shimmering form led them through the twisting corridors, a beacon of hope in the darkness. Ethan and his team raced behind, their footsteps echoing off the ancient metal. The surviving Trill followed, a tenuous alliance forged in the crucible of shared survival. Ethan approached the nearest craft, his hand hovering over the smooth hull. It thrummed beneath his touch as if alive. Aiden, what am I looking at here? The AI's voice crackled in his ear. These ships are unlike anything I've ever seen. The technology it's responding to your thoughts, Ethan. It's like they're an extension of your mind. Suddenly, alarms blared through the hangar. The AI's form flickered, its voice urgent. Long-range sensors have detected an incoming fleet. Omni ships, drawn here by the activation of the core. Ethan's blood ran cold. If the Omni got their hands on the core on these ships, it would mean the end of everything. He turned to his team, his jaw set. We have to destroy the Prometheus. It's the only way to keep the core out of Omni hands. Jack shook his head. Destroy it? This tech could change everything, give us a fighting chance. And what happens when the Omni pry it from our cold, dead hands? Ethan snapped. No, we end this here and now. He turned to the AI. We need to overload the reactor. Create a blast big enough to take out the Prometheus, the core, and the Omni fleet with it. The AI nodded. It can be done, but the reactor must be triggered manually. Someone will need to stay behind. Ethan squared his shoulders. Then I'll do it. Get the others to safety. I'll handle the reactor. Ghost stepped forward, his face pale. No, it has to be me. Ethan frowned. Ghost, what are you talking about? Jack gripped his shoulder. Ghost, no, we'll find a way, we always do. Ghost shook his head. Not this time, brother. This is my chance to make it right, to make sure the Prometheus's secrets don't fall into the wrong hands. Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to argue, to rail against the unfairness of it all, but he saw the resolve in Ghost's eyes, the peace. They boarded the ships, the Trill and humans side by side. As the engines roared to life, Ethan looked back to see Ghost standing tall, his rifle held high in salute. And then they were off, tearing through the hangar and into the sky. Zephyrus Prime fell away beneath them, a tapestry of green and blue. Behind them, a new sun bloomed. The Prometheus, the Omnicorps, the Omnifleet, all consumed in a maelstrom of fire and fury. The shockwave hit them like a hammer blow, sending them tumbling end over end. Ethan fought with the controls, teeth gritted as he wrestled the ship back on course. His comm crackled, a familiar voice filling the cockpit. "Ethan, if you're hearing this, then I guess I did all right." Ghost's voice was thin, strained, but filled with a quiet joy. "I just wanted to say, it's been an honor to fight beside you, to be part of something bigger, something that mattered." Tears blurred Ethan's vision. He blinked them away, his hands white-knuckled on the yoke. "You give 'em hell out there, you hear me? You make every last second count, because that's all we've got in the end. The time we have and what we choose to do with it." The transmission faded into static. Ethan stared out at the stars, at the infinite possibilities stretching before them. They had lost much, but they had also gained a chance for a new beginning, a new hope, and he'd be damned if he'd let that chance slip away. The ship streaked onwards, towards an uncertain future, but they faced it together, united by the bonds of sacrifice and brotherhood. The fight was far from over, but for now, for this one shining moment, they were free, and that was enough. The shockwave from the Prometheus's destruction slammed into their ships, sending them careening through the void. Alarms shrieked and sparks showered from overloaded consoles as Ethan fought to regain control. His hands flew over the controls, rerouting power and stabilizing thrusters. Gradually, the spinning stars outside the view screen slowed to a crawl. "Damage report," Ethan barked into the comm. Jax's voice crackled back, strained but alive. "Hull integrity compromised, engines at half power, but we're still flying." "Same here," replied a Trill pilot, her scaled features illuminated by the glow of her instruments. "We're dead in space without repairs." Ethan nodded grimly. They were stranded light years from any known outpost, with limited supplies and a fragile truce between former enemies. But they were alive. Ghost's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. "We pool our resources," Ethan said, his voice steady. "Work together to get these birds back in the air. Jax, coordinate with the Trill engineers. Aiden, map out the nearest habitable systems." They set to work, humans and Trill side by side, trading tools and expertise. Bulkheads were welded, circuits spliced, life support systems coaxed back from the brink. It was slow, grueling labor, punctuated by the occasional flare of old animosities, but necessity and a shared grief forged a fragile bond. Days bled into weeks as they cobbled together, a ragtag fleet from the bones of their shattered ships. They were just plotting a course back to civilized space when Aiden's sensors pinged with an incoming distress beacon. "It's coming from a nearby system," the AI reported. "An uncharted world. The signal is weak, encrypted with Omni protocols." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. The Omni, the shadowy human faction behind the Prometheus tragedy, behind so much loss and destruction. The answers he'd sought for so long, the key to the secrets that had shattered his life, could be waiting on that distant world. He looked around at the weary, battered faces of his crew, human and Trill alike. They'd fought so hard, sacrificed so much. Could he ask them to plunge headlong into another mystery, another battle? Jax met his gaze, a fire burning in the depths of his eyes. "We've come this far, Captain. Might as well see it through." A rumble of assent rose from the others, a grim determination taking hold. They'd started this journey together. They'd finish it the same way. Ethan nodded, pride and resolve welling in his chest. "Set course for the signal's origin. Let's find out what the Omni are hiding." They descended through roiling clouds of acid green, their ship's hulls shuddering in the turbulent atmosphere. The planet's surface resolved into a bleak expanse of jagged rock and towering spires, all shrouded in an eerie, luminescent mist. "There," Aiden said, highlighting a sprawling structure nestled in a ravine. "The distress beacon's point of origin." They set down on a cracked plateau, the silence broken only by the hiss of cooling engines. Ethan stepped out into the alien air, his skin prickling with unease. There was something wrong about this place, a feeling of stillness, of holding its breath. He signaled to the others, a series of quick, precise hand gestures honed by years of covert ops. They moved out in formation, weapons at the ready, scanning for signs of life or threat. The facility's walls loomed before them, pitted metal scored with blast marks and gouges. The main doors hung askew, ripped from their hinges by some great force. Ethan advanced cautiously, the hair on the back of his neck standing on end. Inside, the corridors stretched into shadow, lit only by the fitful strobing of emergency lights. Overturned equipment and shattered glass crunched beneath their boots. The air was thick with the copper tang of blood and the acrid stench of chemicals. Jax knelt beside a fallen figure, his face grim. Omni researcher. Looks like they were torn apart by something big. A low growl echoed from the depths of the facility, raising every hackle. Ethan's grip tightened on his rifle, his heart pounding. What had the Omni been doing here? What horrors had they unleashed? They pressed on, deeper into the maze of corridors, following the trail of destruction. Shattered containment pods lined the walls, viscous fluid pooling on the floor. Terminals flickered with fragments of data, images of twisted, writhing forms, spliced genetic sequences scrolling across fractured screens. They were experimenting, Aiden said, horror and fascination warring in his voice. Combining the DNA of different species, trying to create something new, something dangerous. Ethan's blood ran cold as the implications sank in. The Omni, tampering with the very building blocks of life, weaponizing the secrets they'd stolen from the Prometheus. The scale of it, the hubris, was staggering. A flicker of movement caught his eye, a shadow darting between the ruined labs. He spun, finger tightening on the trigger, only to find himself staring into a face from his past. Zara, he breathed, hardly daring to believe it. Zara Krell. She stepped into the light, her features achingly familiar yet subtly changed. The same piercing intellect burned in her eyes. But there was something else there too, something colder, more calculating. Hello, Ethan, she said, her voice silk over steel. It's been a long time. Memories crashed over him in a dizzying wave. Late nights poring over data with Xander, Zara's father, untangling the mysteries of the universe. The pride in Xander's eyes as he spoke of his brilliant daughter, following in his footsteps. The crushing grief when Xander disappeared, leaving Ethan with nothing but questions and a gaping void. And now here she was, standing at the heart of the Omni's twisted experiments. A part of him, the part that remembered the eager young scientist she'd been, recoiled in denial. But the soldier, the man who'd seen the depths of cruelty that sentient beings could sink to, knew better. What have you done, Zara? He asked, his voice rough with emotion. What is all this? She smiled, a cold, sharp thing. This is progress, Ethan. This is the future. She spread her arms, encompassing the chamber of horrors. The Omni are the vanguard of a new era, one where humanity takes its rightful place as the masters of creation. Ethan shook his head, revulsion and anger warring within him. This isn't mastery, it's abomination. It's perverting the sanctity of life itself. Zara laughed, a sound like shattering glass. Life? What has life ever done for us but constrain and limit our potential? The strong thrive, the weak perish, and the only law is the law of the jungle. The Omni understand this. We embrace it. She stepped closer, her eyes boring into his. Think of what we could achieve together, Ethan, with your skills, your knowledge of the Prometheus, and my vision. We could unlock the secrets of the Omnicore, shape the very fabric of existence. We could be as gods. For a moment, just a moment, Ethan wavered. The lure of answers, of power, of connection to the man he'd looked up to for so long, tugged at him with seductive fingers. How easy it would be to let go, to embrace the darkness as Zara had. Zara's face hardened, all pretense of warmth falling away. "Then you'll die with the rest of the week," she hissed. "You and your pathetic band of misfits." She raised her hand, and the shadows came alive with snarling, misshapen forms. Ethan glimpsed teeth and claws, writhing tentacles and pulsing, cancerous flesh. The failed experiments, the discarded attempts at playing God, unleashed to do their mistress's bidding. He brought his rifle up, even as Jax and the Trill fell into formation beside him. There was no more time for talk, for regret or recrimination. There was only the fight, the desperate struggle to survive, to stop the Omni's twisted vision from becoming reality. Ethan locked eyes with Zara one last time, saw the madness and malevolence swirling in their depths. Then he opened fire, and the world dissolved into blood and chaos. The chamber erupted into a maelstrom of blaster fire and screeching metal as Ethan's team and the Trill clashed with Dr. Krell's abominations. Ethan ducked and wove, his rifle spitting plasma bolts at the twisted creatures. Beside him, Jax and the Trill fought with grim efficiency, their weapons carving through the Omni ranks. But for every monstrosity they felled, two more seemed to take its place. Claws raked armor, tentacles coiled around limbs, screams of pain and fury mingled with the roar of battle. Jax, his face a mask of blood and determination, slammed a fresh power cell into his rifle. "We can't hold them off forever," he shouted over the din. "We need to shut this place down." Jax nodded grimly. "Lead the way, boss, we'll cover you." They fought their way through the writhing horde, the Trill forming a protective phalanx around them. The control room loomed ahead, its reinforced doors sealed tight. Jax sprinted forward, his fingers flying over the access panel. "Damn it, it's locked down tight. I can't bypass the security proto—" The doors hissed open, revealing Dr. Krell, a triumphant smile on her face. "You're too late, Ethan. The Omni's ascension is at hand, and you will be the instrument of our victory." Ethan raised his rifle, his finger tightening on the trigger. "I'll never join you, Zara. I won't let you twist Xander's legacy into something monstrous." Dr. Krell laughed, a sound like shattering glass. "You still don't understand, do you? The Omni are the future of humanity. We are evolution incarnate, the next step in our species' destiny." She gestured, and the room filled with holographic displays, each showing a different stage of the Omni's experiments. Human and Trill subjects, their bodies warped and mutated, their minds broken to the Omni's will. "Behold the true power of the Omnicore," Dr. Krell said, her voice ringing with fervor. "The power to reshape life itself, to mold it to our desires." Ethan's stomach churned with revulsion. "This isn't evolution, it's abomination. It's playing God with the very fabric of existence." Dr. Krell's eyes narrowed. "And what gives you the right to decide the course of our species? You who cling to the old ways, to the weakness of the flesh." She raised her hand, and Ethan felt a sudden, searing pain in his chest. He staggered, his vision blurring. What have you done to me?" he gasped, his rifle slipping from his fingers. Dr. Krell smiled, a cold, cruel thing. "I've activated the piece of the Omnicore that lies within you, Ethan, the piece that was embedded during your time on the Prometheus." Ethan's eyes widened, realization dawning. The blackouts, the strange visions, the sense of something alien stirring in his mind. It all made sense now. "So you see now, don't you?" Dr. Krell said, her voice soft and seductive. "You are one of us, Ethan. You always have been. Embrace your destiny, and together we will usher in a new era for humanity." Ethan's mind reeled, torn between the lure of power and the revulsion at what that power represented. He looked to his team, saw the horror and disbelief in their eyes. And in that moment he made his choice. With a roar of defiance, Ethan launched himself at Dr. Krell, his fists slamming into her with all the force of his rage and despair. They grappled, rolling across the floor in a tangle of limbs and flashing blades. Dr. Krell was strong, her body enhanced by the Omni's twisted science. But Ethan was fueled by something more, by the memories of those he had lost, by the knowledge of what was at stake. He rained down blows, his knuckles splitting, his bones cracking. Dr. Krell reeled, her face a mask of blood and fury. And then, with a final, desperate lunge, Ethan's hands closed around her throat. He squeezed, pouring all his strength, all his will, into the act. Dr. Krell's eyes bulged, her mouth gaping in a silent scream. And then, with a sickening crunch, it was over. Ethan staggered back, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The Omni-Core pulsed within him, its power singing in his veins. Around him the facility shuddered, the Omni's creations screeching in agony, as their mistress's control was severed. Jax and the Trill looked to him, their faces etched with worry and fear. "Ethan," Jax said, his voice hoarse, "what do we do now?" Ethan closed his eyes, the weight of his choice pressing down on him like a physical thing. He knew what he had to do, knew the price he would have to pay. But for the sake of the galaxy, for the sake of all he held dear, it was a price he was willing to pay. He opened his eyes, his gaze hard and clear. We run, and we don't look back." They fled through the crumbling ruins of the facility, dodging falling debris and the twisted remains of the Omni's experiments. The stolen fighter craft loomed ahead, a promise of escape, of freedom. But even as they boarded, even as the engines roared to life and the stars streaked past the viewports, Ethan could feel the Omni-Core stirring within him, its power seeping into his mind, his soul. He looked to his team, saw the trust and loyalty in their eyes, and he knew that he would not let that power consume him. He would not let himself become the very thing they had fought so hard to destroy. "Set a course for the nearest inhabited system," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil raging within him. "I need you to promise me something." Jax frowned, concern etched into his features. "Anything, boss, you know that." Ethan took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. "If the Omni-Core takes over, if I become a threat, I need you to stop me, by any means necessary." Silence filled the cockpit, heavy and oppressive. Jax and the others exchanged glances, their expressions grim. "Ethan," Jax began, but Ethan cut him off with a sharp gesture. "Promise me," he said, his voice brooking no argument. "Swear it on the memory of those we've lost." One by one they nodded, their eyes shining with unshed tears. Ethan felt a weight lift from his shoulders, a sense of peace settling over him despite the storm raging within. He turned to the viewport, staring out at the infinite expanse of space. Somewhere out there, he knew, was the answer he sought, the key to destroying the Omni-Core, to saving himself and the galaxy from its corrupting touch. He would find it, no matter the cost. He would finish what he had started, even if it meant sacrificing everything he held dear. For he was Ethan Hicks, the last guardian of the Prometheus's legacy, and he would not rest until his mission was complete. The stars streaked by, cold and uncaring, as the ship hurtled into the unknown. Ethan closed his eyes, letting the hum of the engines wash over him, drowning out the whispers of the Omni-Core. He thought of Ghost, of the sacrifice he had made to give them this chance, of Xander and the trust he had placed in Ethan's hands, of all the lives that had been lost, all the dreams that had been shattered in the Omni's twisted pursuit of power. And he made a silent vow, a promise to the fallen and the yet-to-be-born. He would see this through to the end, no matter the price. For the galaxy, for the future, and for himself. In the depths of space, a lone ship sped onward, carrying the hopes and fears of 1,000 worlds in its wake. And at its heart, a man stood tall, his eyes fixed on the horizon, ready to face whatever fate had in store. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.